I have a guest that I reached out to because I want everyone to meet Teddy Daniels. He's a decorated cop. He's a decorated military veteran. He's a dad, and he's a guy who decided to get involved locally in politics because he didn't, like many of us, he didn't like some of the things that he was seeing happening. He's also a businessman who came up with a really interesting concept. And so I just want everybody to meet Teddy Daniels. Teddy, welcome to the program.
Sergeant, thank you so much. And it's an honor to actually talk to you. I've seen you on the news, and, you know, being a cop for years, I knew who you were. And I was like, wow, Sergeant Smith is reaching out. So this is really cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you're running for Congress in the 8th Congressional District in Pennsylvania. But before you decide to get into politics, you had quite a career in law enforcement, military, and in business. Talk just a minute about those things.
Oh, okay. First off, I was a cop for 15 years. I played football at West Virginia University. I got injured playing ball. And, you know, I knew that an office job was not something that would really suit me well. So I became a police officer, and I loved it. As Sergeant, let me tell you, my first 2 years on the job, I learned more than I could have ever learned sitting in a classroom. People skills, communication skills, de-escalation, you name it. So I spent 15 years, worked a lot of narcotics, was a court-recognized expert in use of force, policy, and procedure, and was the Department Defensive Tactics and use of force instructor. So I loved it. You know, I hit that 15-year mark, and I found myself sitting behind a desk. And I thought, you know what, there's got to be more out there. So, you know, I was banged up from playing ball, and you know, 15 years of on the job, people think it's an easy job, and you know, it's not. So I went and enlisted active duty in the U.S. Army. I went infantry. Funny thing is, when I initially walked into a Marine Corps recruiting station, and the Marine Corps recruiter said, how old are you? And I said, I'm 35. He goes, yeah, our cutoff's 27. Try next door. So I walk into the Army recruiter, and the two sergeants in there stand up and they say, hey, how you doing, sir? Whose father are you? And said, no, guys, I'm here to enlist. So I went and took the ASVAB, and, you know, the scores came back. They said, Teddy, you can do any job you want to do in the military. You name it, military intelligence, bomb technician, the sky's the limit. And I said, I want to go infantry. And they looked at me like I was a little crazy, and they said, you do realize what infantry is, and at your age, this is not going to be easy. And I said, well, if I'm walking away from one of the most rewarding careers I've ever had, it needs to mean something to me. So I went, I did that, was stationed in Fort Carson, Colorado. And due to my law enforcement background, they put me on something called COIST, Company Intelligence Support Team. So when we were downrange in Afghanistan, you know, my primary MOS was infantryman, but they cross-trained me. And I would go out on every patrol. I would talk to the Afghan villagers, the Afghan National Police, the Afghan National Army, find the intel and gather that intel, where the Taliban was moving, where the terrorist networks were moving around. You know, we had high value targets that we were trying to get. And I would bring that information back to our commander so he would formulate a battle plan. I was in Kunar province. It was the most kinetic area of the country. And 80% of the ordnance in the war was dropped in Kunar province, where we were. Was wounded in a firefight, took a couple bullets, Purple Heart recipient. And I knew when I came back to Fort Carson, Colorado, where I was stationed out of, I was in the medical retirement process. So I'm sitting back. I'm in the hospital in between surgeries, and I got the news on the TV, and you know, they had all these marijuana dispensaries that were opening up. And they were getting robbed. People were crashing trucks through their warehouses and stealing $250,000 worth of plants. The owners of these places were getting robbed at gunpoint because banks wouldn't do business with the industry. And a lot of the big security firms wouldn't touch it because they would have lost their federal contracts. So I actually started the first company in the space using former law enforcement and former military, highly trained guys, to protect these marijuana related businesses, and we would transport the money for them, and we would vault the money. So in 8 months, I took that company public. We sold and came back to Pennsylvania and actually started the second company in Pennsylvania, and that was acquired about 2 years ago.
You are truly able to use your experience in police work and your experience in the military, and then go way outside the box to come up with different businesses that address protection needs. This is the thing, whatever you feel about marijuana, it was when it became legal in Colorado, there were security issues that needed to be addressed, and you saw that need. So when you're elected to Congress, what are some of your thoughts on, rectifying that states' rights issue with the legalization of cannabis and the kind of the federal refusal to really get involved in that industry?
Well, I think obviously it is a 10th Amendment. It is a states' rights issue. The one thing that is killing the banking, so the company that I started in Pennsylvania, we actually had the capabilities, and we worked with the businesses, with the financial institutions, and we had a vault where we would actually process this money and be able to transport this money legally to the Federal Reserve. Okay, so we worked with FinCEN, worked with a lot of agencies to make sure that everything was tightened up, that we could do it. Now, our insurance premiums were through the freaking roof, but we were able to get it done. And like I said, we were acquired about 2 years ago. Now, on the federal level, again, when it comes to the actual marijuana, we handled the cash. Okay, we handled the cash end of it. On a personal level, do I feel that it should be rescheduled from a lower classification where it is right now, federally a Schedule 1? Yeah, I kind of do. I really do. And I'll tell you why. My father died of cancer a little over 2 years ago. The man was a hard right. He was a brick and stone mason. He looked and acted exactly like Paul Sr. from American Chopper. That was my father. And I remember when I went off to college, he said to me, he goes, "Hey, you smoke dope, I'll kill you." And he meant it. Okay. He meant it. My dad was a no playing around kind of guy. And when he was suffering with cancer, the chemo was really, really, really killing him. And any type of pain medication, morphine, stuff like that he would take would just make him really sick. So he went and explored the whole medicinal marijuana. And I went to visit him one day, and he's sitting on his back porch smoking a joint. And I just looked at him. I said, "Dad, what happened to that speech when I go off to school, I'll kill you?" He goes, "You know what? I was wrong about a lot of things in my life." And he goes, "I don't think people should be driving doing this or whatever." He goes, "I'm sitting on my porch. It really, really, really helps with the pain." And that opened my eyes. And I was already out of the industry by then. And that really opened my eyes to the medicinal benefits of it. As far as federal, adult use or recreational, I still think we need to see some more info on that. But I'm all for the medicinal end, where if you have a true condition to where this can help, go for it. On a personal level, I don't use it. Okay. Now, I've known a lot of vets who have struggled with PTSD, with pain from injuries, and they say that it really helps them relax. It helps them sleep at night. Sergeant, I'm the type of guy, though, I don't like feeling like I have lost control of my senses. So I carry a gun 24/7. So I don't use it. I don't want to feel like I'm impaired in any way, shape or form. So it's a personal reason for me, which is why I don't use it. But the libertarian in me says, let people use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's so perfect. That's what's so perfect about a lot of your stances that I've read about and things is you're a guy who really believes in personal choice, when
It
it
has to
comes
be.
and that's the same with firearms and your kids' education and all those things. And of course, one of the biggest issues we have in politics now is police reform and the big talk about police reform. And so, I know that's got to be a big issue for you. And so let's talk about that, because again, you decided to get involved, and you and I were talking, off the air that all politics are local. So you decided,
They are.
what, I'm going to get involved. And so when you get to Congress, what's police reform going to look like for you?
Police reform for me is going to look like bigger budgets for police departments, bigger training budgets for police departments. Right now, the government has really hamstringed police agencies. You look what they just did in Minnesota, okay, in Minneapolis. New York City getting rid of their qualified immunity. Now, Sergeant, you know as well as I do, proactive police work is what keeps a community safe. Reactive, the crime's already been committed. You're just showing up to take a report. When you take away qualified immunity, okay, cops are not going to be proactive anymore. It's not going to happen. Okay. What they need to do is take qualified immunity away from politicians and give it back to the cops. Okay. And the funny thing is, and all these people that are crying, defund the police, they spend $200,000 a year on their own personal security. What about the people they represent? Do those people spend $200K a year on personal security? No. So I'm the king. I have mine. You peasants fend for yourselves. That's the message they're sending.
And you're absolutely correct. And that's why, in fact, with the National Police Association, we got involved in Minneapolis and helped with some of the court proceedings to make sure that citizens had police protection. Because, and again, their city council, we're seeing now they want to completely disband the police department, make it a public safety organization, which is just going to be a different word for a police department. It's kind of a bait and switch. And we're seeing that, around the country where, Austin, Texas, it was one of the cities that really, truly defunded a good share of their police department. And now those citizens are paying for it, as are the citizens of Chicago and Baltimore and New York and all that. What do you think can be done federally when you get to Washington, D.C. to help those citizens in urban areas as well as rural areas who have these radical city councils that want to get rid of their police departments?
Well, and again, it's a local government states' rights issue. What we can do from the federal government is support them in any way that they can, support the agencies, support the departments. The problem where a lot of departments get into trouble, they don't have a lot of money in their training budget. You need to train officers. Sergeant, you're a police instructor. I was a police instructor. Okay. I was fortunate enough that my agency sent me to the best schools in the country, not just to learn it, but to teach it and come back and teach the other officers in your department. I would also go around and teach the officers in neighboring agencies. Some departments have the budget, some don't. And we need to make sure that these training budgets in these agencies are not touched. There's even been cases of mayors going into the police budget and pulling that money out to go pay for something else. That's a big issue too. So, as far as a federal police force, okay, not for it at all. I don't agree with the Capitol Police trying to branch out in Florida. The U.S. Capitol is not in Florida. Stay out of Florida, okay? It's wrong. It's oversight. It's overreach, okay? And it needs to stop. I think the best police departments out there are your local community agencies, your city departments, to where officers grew up there. They know the people, they know the communities, and they come from those communities. And that's what you need.
Very well said. Teddy, why do you think that there is such a push, and we can go back to May of 2020, but there's been this push for well over a year to vilify law enforcement, especially local, state, and county law enforcement? Why do you think that is?
Oh, boy. Democrats operate under chaos. They thrive on chaos. And every day, our brothers and sisters go out there and they hold that line, okay? Sorry, I don't know why anybody today would want to raise their hand and take that oath to do this job. God bless all of them, because, I got out over 10 years ago. I couldn't do this job today. There is no way. It's because it's the thin blue line that is the line between chaos and order, okay? The Democrats thrive on chaos, so they don't want the police around. That's why.
And they call our thin blue line flag, racist, and they say that our system is racist. We've
anything that they cannot beat an argument with facts is racist. It's right. That simple.
And in fact, we're at a point now where because the whole defund the police narrative was a big fail for the political left, because people are, in fact, there's been many surveys done, many polls done where people say, I don't want less cops. We need more cops in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's turned out to kind of be a big fail for them. Who does defunding really hurt?
It hurts the people. It hurts the communities. And honestly, Sergeant, you know this just as I do, it hurts the poor communities, because they're not going to pull cops out of the rich neighborhoods. They're going to pull them out of the poor neighborhoods. That's who it's going to hurt. And it's a shame. I worked some very bad neighborhoods, and half of the people there hated us, but the other half loved us. The ones who lived there before their neighborhoods went to hell. Okay. They were like, clean this block up. And we're like, hey, we got you, So it hurts the poor communities.
Nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop.
More than a good cop. You're absolutely right.
I want you to talk about that, because I know a lot of people say to law enforcement and retired law enforcement like you and I, will you just defend anybody? And that's just true, is it?
No, because it's a stain on the entire profession. I had a case in my career where I actually stood up against a police administrator who had a questionable background and was saying some pretty outwardly racist things. And, you got to be the good guy and stand up. That's what integrity is. That's what character is. And I feel that, the scales of justice are blind. And if you go out there on a hard partisan end, whether it be right or left, and you're still wearing a badge, okay, I think it makes people wonder, well, am I going to get a fair shake with this guy or this girl because I have a different political opinion? So I truly, and that's why a lot of civil service agencies are, you're not allowed to involve yourself in politics. It's against the civil service regulations. So, I spoke up about the Capitol Police that testified on January 6th. And I felt their little performance was wrong, was dead wrong. Bernie Carrick, former New York City Police Commissioner, echoed the same sentiment. So again, now where these officers stand politically. If you're on the other side of the aisle, do you ever feel like you get a fair shake with one of these guys? I mean, you heard their testimony. It was absurd. So that's why, again, a lot of agencies with civil service, where you have to go through, take the civil service exam, you are forbidden from being involved in anything politically.
Absolutely. Teddy, I so wish we had more time. I'm going to have to bring you back as your candidacy continues.
I'm in. Let's do it.
Where can people find you, find more about you, and where can they follow your social media?
Sorry, thank you. Go to teddydanielspa.com. That's Teddy like the bear, Daniels like the bourbon, and PA the state. teddydanielspa.com. And on Twitter, you can find me at Daniels Congress.
Teddy, you're going to be a big damn deal in this country, and I sure appreciate you spending time with us today. And if you would like more information about the National Police Association, visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Ma'am, put the gun down! Put the gun down!
Last year, law enforcement officers were involved in hundreds of thousands of use of force incidents. A use of force incident is when an officer must use nonverbal tactics to gain control of a dangerous situation.
Put the knife on the ground.
In many cases, officers have no choice but to use force when a suspect doesn't comply with a lawful order.
Use of force is always ugly. No one likes it, especially police officers.
Together, we can help de-escalate these dangerous encounters. Help police officers by complying with their lawful orders. Don't attack, attempt to disarm, or flee from an officer.
Use of force is an officer's last option. Most incidents can be avoided by not resisting arrest.
If you feel you've been wrongfully detained by a police officer, then seek a legal solution after the encounter has been resolved.
Let's keep everyone safe. Comply now and complain later.